Welcome to another episode of The Dissection. In this episode, we're talking about municipal corruption and the Auditor General report. To be honest, I think the highest levels of corruption that affect people on a day-to-day basis happen at the local government level, particularly at the municipal level. The allocation for local municipalities in the Division for Revenue for 2025 is 234.6 billion. That's a lot of money. But how much of that will actually reach the Hosh Kari industrial complex? How much of that is going to end up in the Hosh circles? I think if we were trying to deal with municipal corruption, local government corruption, national government corruption, you need to investigate the Hosh Kari Maimas. You need to do lifestyle audits. And I think you will solve 97% of the problems. Promise 97%, because the Hosh, the stuff. Did you see that gentleman who said if you are on a pay slip, you need to leave certain nightclubs at 11 p.m. You need to leave Senton at a certain amount of time? Because after that, it's the Hosh Kari fathers who take over. They're the only ones who can be like swiping for all manner of bottles, for all manner of champagnes. After 11 is Hosh time, Baba. Hosh time for the Hosh Kari fathers and the Hosh Kari mothers, because the money is being chowed and a lot of it is coming from local government. So let's talk about this. The Auditor General released a report on the state of municipal finances ending in 2024. So let me do some quick definitions so that you can keep up with this particular episode and get everyone on the same page. An auditor is a professional, either an individual or a firm, authorized to examine and verify the accuracy of an organization's financial reports, ensuring compliance with laws, regulations, and internal policies. The Auditor General, that's the general of the auditors, right? The Auditor General of South Africa is the country's supreme audit institution, established by the Constitution as a Chapter 9 institution to support and strengthen constitutional democracy. The Auditor General is the only institution legally mandated to audit and report on how the government at all levels, national, provincial, and local, spends public funds collected from South African taxpayers. They are essentially the referee of how the money is being spent. They produce reports annually on how municipal and national funds are being spent. And this past week, the Auditor General released the latest report on local government municipal spending. And it's not looking good, bruv. Not looking good. Local government elections are also around the corner, so I don't know if this is going to have an impact on how voters decide and whether or not these municipalities change their behavior. I don't know if you've been following or remember the days. The 2016 South African municipal elections were held on the 3rd of August 2016. The 2021 South African municipal elections were held on the 1st of November 2021. And if we use those dates as an approximation of when the next elections will happen, we're now between 400 to 500 days away from the elections. So will these municipalities be able to turn the situation around before the elections? Or will the elections themselves be a tsunami for the MK, Action SA, Democratic Alliance, Independence? Why am I mentioning MK? Because they've been performing very well in KZN in the by-elections. Why DA? Because they have this track record, which we'll discuss in this video. Why Action SA? Because some people are very happy with the performance of Action SA in Pretoria and Tshwane. So here are the highlights from the report, the Auditor General report. 41 municipalities out of 257 received clean audits. 41 municipalities out of 257 received clean audits. That's 16%. If you look at this, most of the clean audits came from the province of the Western Cape, which is under the control of the Democratic Alliance. Let's just look at these numbers here. Beg-Giver, Breeder Valley, Cape Agathis, Cape Winelands, Drakensberg, Garden Route, George Local Municipality, Landsberg Local Municipality, Mossel Bay Local Municipality, Overstrand, Saldanha Bay, Stellenbosch, Swartland, West Coast, Witzenberg, all of these. And if you look at the years, 9 years, 5 years, 11 years, 11 years, 6 years, 4 years, 4 years, 11 years, 6 years, 5 years, 5 years, 12 years, 6 years, 5 years, 5 years, 14 years, 12 years, right? I think 14 years there is the longest. West Coast District Municipality has had a clean audit for that long. Western Cape has 17 out of the 41 clean audits. Eastern Cape, you got one over there. Gauteng, you've got Midval, which I think is under the control of the Democratic Alliance. You've got in KwaZulu-Natal, King Ceshwayo District, and then Umhlatuze there. You've got Mpumalanga only 2. You've got Northern Cape only 2. Western Cape dominating in this clean audit list. And I think nobody can contest that. At that level, the DA is at least managing the finances that they have in a clean, transparent, and manner which goes in line with the rules of auditing, the rules of accounting, financial management, and accounting. They're doing well, right? So some municipalities lost clean audit status from the previous years. Of the 29 municipalities that received a clean audit, both in 2020 and 2021, and also in 2023-2024, there are about 25 that sustained their clean audit status every year since 2020-2021. So you can see that from the data, not everyone is doing well, but some people are doing well consistently. Cape Town was the only metro with a clean audit outcome out of the metros. There are 10 municipalities which have had adverse outcomes from 21 to 2024. There are 7 municipalities that have repeatedly received disclaimed audit opinions, which is the worst audit outcome for 3 to 8 consecutive years. Most of these 7 repeat disclaimers are in the Eastern Cape and Northwest. These are some of the names that have been mentioned in the slates, which may be with Patrice Motsepe, which may be with, what's his name, Fikile Mbalula, etc. Oscar Mabuyane, for instance, mentioned all the time. But there's a lot happening in his province that is not delightful or exemplary. Case in point, municipalities with a lot of Hosh Kari behavior. Hosh Kari behavior. HKB. Hosh Kari behavior. There's a lot of it. Municipalities continue to contract consultants to perform functions for which finance units are responsible. And what they would do, they were stating vacancies and a lack of skills in the finance units as reasons. However, using financial reporting consultants apparently has become a permanent solution for most municipalities, most notably Limpopo and Northwest. Municipalities did not effectively, according to the Auditor General, use these expensive resources, which had the price tag of 848 million in 2023-2024, and they had little impact at the 101 municipalities. 46% were identified material misstatements in the areas of the consultant's work. They identified material misstatements in 101 municipalities, 46% of the municipalities where the consultants were working. Because they're getting these consultants to try help them cook what needs to be cooked so that they can hosh kari. And the curry is not coming out with the right level of consistency. They're trying to get a biryani curry. Then they're getting a woo. Yo. So what the Auditor General said is non-compliance with legislation remained high, with 206, which is 83% municipalities, materially not complying with key legislation. A total of 201 municipalities received material compliance findings in all 3 years of the current administration, indicating a clear disregard for compliance with limited consequences. Non-compliance has resulted in irregular expenditure of 87 billion being incurred over the 3 years of the current administration. She said municipal managers, mayors, and councils all contributed to poor financial management in the municipalities. So this is a stark picture she's painting. Stark picture. And then what she also said was the following. She said, you've got the clean audits, and then you've got this next category, which is also a problematic category when you look at her reasons. She said, the most prevalent audit outcome since 2020-21 has been an unqualified audit opinion on the financial statements with material findings on the quality of performance reports and or compliance with key legislation. The Auditor General points out that this is not healthy and or good. And she highlights the following findings. On irregular expenditure, she says 60 municipalities, or 24% of the municipalities, did not report all the irregular expenditure they incurred in their financial statements. In some cases, the irregular expenditure amount reported was incorrect. When it comes to revenue from services provided, she says 60 municipalities, 24%, did not have adequate evidence to support the revenue amounts that they disclosed in their financial statements, and they did not disclose all the revenue that they should have or recorded the amounts billed for services rendered incorrectly. Think about that. Revenue from services provided, 60 municipalities, 24%, did not have adequate evidence to support the revenue amounts that they disclosed in their financial statements, did not disclose all the revenue that they should have, or recorded amounts billed for services rendered incorrectly. Speaking about expenditure, she says 53 municipalities, 21%, did not have adequate evidence to support the expenditure amounts, did not record all the expenditure that they should have, or did not properly classify the expenditure in their financial statements. So they're not reporting where they're getting the money correctly, they're not reporting where the money is being spent correctly, and they're not providing evidence for that expenditure. These numbers basically could have been cooked, is what she's trying to say in a diplomatic language, because the municipality cannot show you evidence. Where is the evidence? No evidence. Scant paucity of evidence. So I've been using these terms loosely. Let me give you some definitions so that you can follow. Irregular expenditure. It means expenditure incurred by the municipality in contravention of the Municipal Finance Management Act. Irregular expenditure refers to spending that does not comply with the prescribed legal framework, which can arise from various procurement and financial management failures. Examples of irregular expenditure: procurement without competitive bidding, inadequate contract management, non-compliance with procurement processes and the requirements thereof, utilization of funds for unapproved purposes. Instances where funds earmarked for specific purposes are used for other unapproved activities. This includes using allocations without the necessary approvals from the Treasury Authority, failure to obtain required approvals, exceeding financial thresholds, legacy issues, where you've got ongoing expenditure issues that stem from previous year contracts or agreements that were not compliant with the current regulations. So those are examples of irregular expenditure. And I think the most important one to just remember there is procurement without competitive bidding. I'm going to talk a little bit about that just now. Then you've got fruitless and wasteful expenditure. Fruitless and wasteful expenditure means expenditure that was made in vain and would have been avoided had reasonable care been exercised. Such expenditure includes interest payments, the payment of inflated prices, and the cost of litigation that could have been avoided. Unauthorized expenditure means any expenditure incurred by the municipality otherwise than in accordance with the approved budget and includes overspending of the total amount appropriated in the municipality's approved budget and overspending of the total amount appropriated for a vote in the approved budget. So you can see fruitless and wasteful, you're overpaying, you're doing things that should not have been done, going into litigation, all these types of things. Unauthorized, you're going over the budget, you're going over what has been voted and approved for. And irregular expenditure, you are incurring expenditure items which are not in line with the regulations and the legislation. Procurement without competitive bidding being one of the most common examples. So I've covered the terms, and now you have an understanding of the terms, right? So we've discussed the report thus far in terms of numbers and percentages, but let's look at some stories that show how these numbers end up looking so bad. Corruption stories and allegations that have come up in the media that help us see what's happening in municipalities. So if you're asking yourself this question, how does municipal corruption happen? Why are potholes multiplying? Why are water leaks multiplying? Let's consider some stories and allegations that have found their way into the media. Let's start with municipal managers. And I'm going to tell you a story about this one municipal manager from 2009. In the year 2009, there was a municipal manager of the Palawabora municipality. She made a decision which has followed her into 2025 and has led to some reports that she could be charged at any given point because of what happened. So there was a major court judgment which was issued in 2020 by the Polokwane High Court that dealt with the events of 2009 and the Palawabora municipality. and the awarding of a tender to an accounting firm. The accounting firm was known as Mawande Chartered Consultants. So, as you've gathered, municipalities often use consultants to help them sort out the financial records and submit them in time to the Auditor General. So in June of 2009, the municipality advertised a tender for generally recognized accounting practices and preparation of the 2008-2009 annual financial statements. The closing date was 30 June 2009 at 10 a.m. 5 firms submitted bids for the tender, and the company that was eventually awarded this tender did not submit a bid, and the person who communicated that the company had won the bid was actually the municipal manager. So this tender-winning company then inflated their costs from 584,000 rands to 2.2 million. They were only paid 200,000 rands, and this was something that caused them great consternation and is what caused the issue to escalate to the courts. The company wanted their 2 million rands because the owners had Hosh Kari to take care of. And the municipality then said, we're not paying you. And this was much later because they said, you got the tender through the back door. This tender is unlawful and corrupt. And when this issue went to the courts, the municipality won the court case. You didn't have to pay them the money. The tender was fraudulently acquired. The judge was so angry about the municipal manager in this judgment. And the judge actually spoke about the awarding of the bid in paragraph 45 of the judgment and said the following. It's clear that various provisions of the Municipal Finance Management Act had been contravened by officials of the applicant in this instance. It will be surprising to learn that steps had been taken against any of those officials. It leaves the distinct impression, if no steps were taken, that officials are being protected to the detriment of the public. At paragraph 48 of the judgment, the judge said he would refer the matter to the Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions in Polokwane to consider the institution of prosecution. So this matter was taken to the Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions in Polokwane, but the municipal manager has not yet been charged. That municipal manager is a minister in the presidency right now, Kumbutso Nchaveni. She was the municipal manager in 2008 who approved this tender, which did not go to a bid. And did go to a bid, but the company that won did not submit any bids. And this is in court judgments that you can read for yourself. So it's a story of the role that municipal managers play sometimes. And if these allegations are true, as reported by media houses, then you can get a picture of how municipal level corruption works. Then there's another issue about hiring unqualified people. Earlier this year, during the interviews for the National Youth Development Agency, we learned about how some people are earning salaries in positions that they're not qualified for. Sihle Lonzi, the EFF member of parliament, the cater undertaker, exposed that one of the cadres who was trying to get a job in the NYDA was not qualified to do so, and also not qualified to be a researcher in the municipality where he worked previously. So this gentleman, the ANC Youth League Treasurer General, Zwelo Masilela, was attempting to secure the NYDA bag, but he had no idea what was waiting for him in the interviews. The cater undertaker. The cater undertaker said, Chief, hey, explain yourself. So when Zwelo appeared in front of the Portfolio Committee for Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, Sihle Lonzi, the cater undertaker, was waiting for him with receipts and the pallbearer. The pallbearer was there. Ooh, kum, Sihle Lonzi, the cater undertaker. He proceeded to crucify with no resurrection Zwelo Masilela because he was exposed for lacking qualifications. And those two MPs who were listening to him with no impression of positivity whatsoever gave him 0 out of 50 in the interview process. You may not have seen this interview, but this is what happened. This is how it played out. Watch the cater undertaker in action.
In 2016 until 2023, again in your CV, you say you were a senior researcher at Mbombela Municipality, Nelspruit in South Africa. Now, it would have made sense to me if you had completed your diploma in 2011, but you have since clarified it to us that you in fact completed it in 2021. So it means you would have been a senior researcher for 5 years without a post-matric qualification. My question to you is, if we were to appoint you, recommend you, and the president were to appoint you to lead the NYDA, would you appoint or employ someone without a post-matric qualification to be a senior researcher in any process or department within the National Youth Development Agency? Because you were a senior researcher and earned a senior researcher salary for 5 years without a post-matric qualification. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question. No, I think I would not do that. Maybe I must maybe the question should have been, what is the circumstance that led to that? Because I did not apply for a post of senior researcher. Because the problem, I had to put the CV accurately to the fact of the positions I occupied, because I didn't want to mislead anybody. Now, what would have happened in the instance, I never applied to be a senior researcher chair. I applied to be a PA and working in the office of the chief whip in the municipality there. Now, because I was deployed in a political office, there was movement. They just placed me as a senior researcher. I could not say, no, I don't qualify. They placed me. They did what they call placement. And then they placed me as a senior researcher. For that matter, for 2 years, I spent that 2 years without being given proper functions in that responsibility. And that was my problem. It was the problem of the municipality. I'm on record complaining about those attributes. And so it was never my making, chair, that I applied for a post that I knew that I don't qualify for. It was the making of the institution which frustrated me at that particular time. And I had issues with it at that time. Now, it was not me. It was just an issue of placement. Because if you were to check, it was just the same institution that I worked in. It was not like I moved to another department, to another institution. I still worked within the same institution. So that was the reality. It was a frustration for me, and I had to enjoy that, and that was it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. No, I think he's clarified that, Honourable Lonzi. I think we need to move to closure.
It's clear, therefore, that there are unqualified people working in the municipalities and that this has an impact on delivery, while there are qualified people who should be working in the municipalities who are not being hired, and then consultants are being hired, right? And if you think about it, the more people who are being placed in the municipality for political loyalties than for talent and capabilities, the more things fall into the cracks. There was a story also that I think is worth thinking about, which came out in March, about how the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro, the executive mayor, Babalwa Lobishe, she was trying to get the council to write off 3.2 billion in fruitless and wasteful expenditure. The council was not being amenable to that, and they were resisting. And that's how it made it to the news. And Nelson Mandela Bay has the highest amount of fruitless and wasteful expenditure in South Africa. And it increased by 2 billion to stand at 24 billion in 2024. So if you think about that, that's a serious amount of money of wasteful expenditure, fruitless and wasteful expenditure. And some of the numbers, if you want to know, the number of tenders in the attempted expenditure write-off was 286 tenders. I don't know if they're going to one Hosh Kari or to the whole Hosh industrial complex there, but there were 30 tenders in the electricity and energy department, 54 tenders in the human settlement department. There were 163 tenders in the infrastructure and engineering directorate. Engineers, you guys are stealing the money. Public health department, 3 tenders. Sports, recreation, arts and culture directorate, 36 tenders. All of these were fruitless and wasteful expenditure tenders. So you can see that there's a lot happening in the municipalities where money is being chowed and the money is not going where it's supposed to go. So one of the things that we need to just be aware of as the division of revenue is going to be debated, and even the fiscal framework first and then division of revenue, all of that, is that the budget has sufficient money. If you think about it honestly, the money is being chowed. The money is being chowed. So what are the possible solutions? Let's end off with solutions way forward, right? One of which is that the Auditor General pointed something which I think suggests solutions to the problem. She said, vacancies and lack of financial management skills remain the biggest contributing factor to financial units not delivering credible financial reports and not implementing good preventative financial controls. She said, municipalities should have finance units that are capacitated, competent, and led by experienced chief financial officers who can provide stability and direction and can lead financial reporting. She said at the end of the 2024 report year period, municipal finance units had an average vacancy rate of 19%, which was higher than the 18% reported in 2020. She said over the same period, the vacancy rate for chief financial officers had worsened, with 50 municipalities, 20%, having vacancies in this position, compared with 37 or 15% in 2020-2021. And then she said, at the municipalities with disclaimed audit opinions, the vacancy rate was even higher, at 18%, and their chief financial officers had held their positions for an average of 39 months by the 2023-2024 year end. So clearly, we need qualified chief financial officers and we need real consequences as well for municipal managers. I think municipal managers should be charged whenever there are instances of fruitless and wasteful expenditure in their municipalities. I think that needs to be taken to Mkwananzi, right? That's what you need to take to Mkwananzi. Make sure that if there's an instance of fruitless and wasteful expenditure, that should be automatic charging for the municipal manager. If that's not done, nothing will change. And if you don't capacitate the municipalities with financial talent, it won't be capacitated. So I know that there's a lot of financial talent in corporate South Africa, all of these CAs. And in fact, we're starting to hear that CAs are not getting the jobs that they were able to get before, that there's now an unemployment rate in the CAs. So why not put these CAs in the municipalities and provide them with the kind of protections that they need? Sometimes if they're working too close to the municipalities, you can actually get killed and you can get intimidated. So maybe these CAs need to work remotely, collect all of the documents and not necessarily live in the same province. But something needs to be done, right? If you think about it, the municipalities where chowing is the most prolific are not hiring people to key positions. Then they are then bringing consulting firms after the chowing has happened to try to help them make the books look halal and kosher and Aye, that can't be something that is entertained going forward. So if this issue is addressed, right, or there is a mandate at some level that people are appointed from the outside of the municipalities to these key financial positions, CFO, and to also get other accounting officials in there, I think that you're going to see a much improved state of affairs for municipalities, and then the money will go to fixing the potholes, fixing the water leaks, fixing these issues of landfills and waste management, all of these things causing problems, paying the water boards. These are budgets that are worth billions. And therefore, even if the intervention is coming from the national government, it's something that is necessary, I think. These municipalities, some of them need to be placed under administration if they're not going to change or willing to change in the short to medium term. This is something that President Ramaphosa must consider if he wants to survive and the ANC wants to survive, because some of these municipalities, it's been too long and the corruption is too strong, realistically speaking. And local government elections are coming 400 to 500 days from now. If the ANC doesn't take actions, it's going to be a disaster. And also, if all they are doing, and now this is looking at a province like Gauteng, if they're just doing management of the numbers so that the reports look a little bit better, but there are so many findings that are still being made by the Auditor General's office around municipal mismanagement, that's not going to work. That's not going to work at helping you win an election. There's one final thing I want to say about the financial numbers. And the Auditor General says it as well. She says some of these municipalities, and she's talking about the Western Cape here, the numbers are good. The auditor is going to be happy and give you the tick. But she's also saying that there's an issue because her finding that the money was transparently and legally managed is not an affirmation of how those funds were allocated and spent. And what does she mean by this when she says it? She's saying that sometimes you can have money in the budget and not take it to places that are in need. She's talking about places like Khayelitsha, Langa, Delft, places where there's massive levels of violence, places where the crime that was being spoken about by Johan Rupert is happening. And if you go to those places, and the last time I was in the Western Cape, I wanted to run Cape Town Marathon, and I was there a few days early, and I was doing some small tourism here and there. And one of the guys told me that, there's Cape Town, then there's Ekapa. Cape Town is the nice, lushy, everything works, Sea Point, Promenade, it's going to be good there. And then Ekapa is where the black people, the colored people live, and there nothing works. There are potholes in the roads, just like in Joburg, just like anywhere else. And the quality of service delivery is not great. And by the way, part of what causes crime is poverty and lack of opportunity. It's not just the violence, right? The poverty and the lack of opportunity make people start going into gangs, going into criminal activity. So the DA likes to say, well, policing is a national competency. We've started to see that, different provinces can handle crime differently in and of itself, which is why Mkhwananzi is being used as an example of effective policing. But on the other side of the equation, you still need to use your budget to create more economic opportunities that make crime unattractive for some other people. I don't think that's happening at the adequate level. Ekapa, Khayelitsha, Elanga, Delft, the other places. So I think that we've all seen what it looks like when you leave the airport going to, the CBD of Cape Town. There's multiple areas where there's underdevelopment, shacks and all manner of living that is not exemplary of a clean audit or does not match with that narrative of a clean audit. So in as much as we must give credit to the DA for cleanly spending that money, the question mark remains on where the money is being spent in and of itself, because there are areas in the Western Cape which are nowhere close to the narrative of the Western Cape as in this, world-class city, because the violence there and some of the most dangerous police stations in South Africa, where they are reporting the highest levels of violent crime, are in the Western Cape, are in Cape Town, that same amazing Cape Town. I don't know. Are you from the Western Cape? Are you watching from the Western Cape? Let's have a conversation. Let's have a conversation in the comments. I'll meet you there.